Ohio State and Penn State. It's the Saturday noon Eastern time kickoff. Big noon kickoff over there on Fox. I did not expect to be in the mode breaking this game down that we're going to be in. You know that when we get these big point spreads, a lot of times my approach to breaking down the game is forget about picking the game straight up. It's more along the lines of if the upset were to happen, how would it happen? And so we kind of slant it a little bit more towards talking about the underdog, only because we're trying to find a path for the underdog. Nobody wants to listen to me explain how a 15.5-point favorite is the better team and should win. You understand that. You've been around here a long time. 2016 is a big rallying cry around State College, PA right now, and it should be. It wasn't that long ago, but perhaps some of you have forgotten. Let me tell you what happened then. That is the last time that we saw the kind of loss that we saw Penn State suffer a couple of weeks ago. So you remember they got blown out by Michigan a couple of weeks ago, and a lot of people, and I won't mention names because some of them are just one room away, started to sell this team down the river a little bit. Couldn't be me. I still got my white tee on. It's white out every night of the week around here. But some people, understandably so, when they watch their team give up 400-plus yards on the ground, they're a little skeptical that they can win the Big Ten. Well, here's why 2016 is important, okay? James Franklin. In fact, forget James Franklin. This team, Penn State, is 1-19 against AP top 5 teams since the year 2000. The exception, that one win, was against Ohio State, and it was in 2016. You know what else had happened in 2016 right before then? Penn State had lost to Michigan 49-10, I think was the final score. So we have seen them get blown out and then pull an upset over a really highly ranked and highly favored Ohio State before. I think it was in State College, wasn't it, Jesse? So pretty much everything's the same. There you go, rinse, repeat from 2016. Can you make it happen? And if you do make it happen, how would this happen? Well, it's simple and very complex, okay? At the very surface, you just have to do some things and make some things happen that we haven't seen before. You know the old adage, just because you hadn't seen it happen doesn't mean it can't happen. That's how upsets shock people all the time. The first thing that I think is imperative for Penn State is they got to flip the script in the red zone. The whole something's got to give deal here. Ohio State is scoring touchdowns. Not scoring, they're scoring touchdowns on 86% of their trips inside the red zone. Not surprisingly, that is top 2 in all of FBS. Penn State, conversely, number 11 when it comes to defensive red zone scoring percentage allowed. So what could we see? Well, if you were to paint the picture and paint the path to an upset, we would see Penn State, quite frankly, do what they did last year in this game. I think Ohio State had to settle for 4 field goals. They still won, but it was a 33-24 game. It was a close game because Penn State forced enough field goals. Now, you're not keeping Ohio State out of the end zone. That's completely unpractical. But what you can do is you're going to force a few threes there. And here's the other thing that I want you to keep in mind. Here's where it could get really interesting, and there's no way you could ever forecast this. But if the upset happens, if you're watching a field storming at Beaver Stadium Saturday night, Jesse, would you guys storm the field if you won this game? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, they will. That's confirmed already. Let security know. They will storm the field if they win this game. If that were to happen Saturday, another thing, it's a stat I rarely talk about, 4th down. But I think it's relevant here. Ohio State leads the country on 4th down conversion rate. They're perfect. It's 9 for 9. I think Georgia is 6 for 6. And those are the only 2 teams that are 100% in 4th down conversion. Well, here's my thinking. Okay, you get down into the red zone, and you get 1st and 10, 2nd and 5, 3rd and 2, 4th and 1. You get some 4th down opportunities, and all of a sudden, that red zone scoring percentage could completely flip on its ear because instead of settling for the threes, you may look at an Ohio State team who is so perfect on the year in that statistical category, they say, forget it. We're not settling for threes. We're going for it. And if you stop them a couple of times, think about the crowbar you've thrown in the bicycle spokes of what is considered normal for this year with these 2 teams, what is considered normal. So that's the first thing that you couldn't ever predict that or forecast that. I'm just saying if it were to happen, that's probably part of it. The other thing is, and this is collectively, the whole crack in the dam metaphor, we use it a lot of times. I am never one to sit here and say Ohio State hasn't played anyone and therefore they shouldn't be power rated high or ranked high. I don't believe in all that. If you're good, you're good. Now, there's another truth that could also parallel that. Ohio State could be really good, and it could also be true that they haven't been tested. That's fine. I don't have a problem with someone saying that. Just don't follow it up with, and therefore they shouldn't be in the top 10 until they get tested. Well, they don't control that. And they played Notre Dame in week 1. So they scheduled a decent out-of-conference opponent, and now they're just playing their conference schedule. It's not their fault. The rest of the Big Ten can't keep up. Actually, it is their fault, but they shouldn't apologize for it. Well, anyway, I'm saying all that to say, yes, it's possible that since they haven't gotten tested, there are some flaws or some cracks on this team that simply haven't shown up. If Penn State were to pull the upset, what probably will have happened is a few of those cracks got exposed and just end up being a little more pronounced than you or I or even Buckeye fans tended to believe they were. You could throw on their corners a little bit better than you expected to. Penn State could run the ball, yards per carry, a little bit better than they expected to. You could generate, and this is where I think it's going to be a struggle for Penn State, but you could generate maybe a little bit better pass rush than you expect to. Now, that's where I think the game may be lost for them, because I don't know that they can generate enough pass rush here. Think about what you're talking about. Now, you can draw a parallel to Bama, Tennessee. The reason Tennessee was able to move it up and down the field at will on Bama was matchups, but it was also because they ran the ball well enough to where Bama could not play the way they really wanted to defensively. So they had to account for that passing game. They had to be in nickel all night. They were in dime a lot of the night. They're light in the box, and Tennessee's able to run it on them. Ohio State will probably be able to run the ball enough on Penn State, while at the same time taking advantage, even if Jackson Smith and Jigba's not part of the plan here, taking advantage of the skill they have on the perimeter to the point where it's a struggle. It's not impossible, but it's a struggle. Luckily, Penn State does have some guys I think they can afford to trust in man coverage. Anyway, let's take a look at what the model thinks. The Vegas number currently is Ohio State minus 15.5. It could not be any more in lockstep with the model. Half a point off. The model we have internally has Ohio State winning by 15. As I was trying to decide which way I was going to go on the spread, I'm telling you I'm picking Ohio State to win. But how about this? Penn State 1-7 versus Ohio State under James Franklin, which screams Buckeyes, right? Well, he's 6-2 against the spread. So he's made a small career for losing to this team, but getting in there under the number. And I think it's going to happen again. Anything above 2 touchdowns, I like to happen again. So I will take Ohio State to win the game. I'll take Penn State to cover. So it's not embarrassing. I don't think it's nearly to the degree that the Michigan game was. And yet I think Ohio State leaves with a win, probably their stiffest test until the Michigan game. And the odds to win the Big Ten as we enter this game are as follows. Ohio State overwhelming favorite, minus 500. Michigan is number 2 at plus 350. It doesn't matter. That game's upcoming, so it'll take care of itself. But Illinois is currently the 3rd odds-on favorite to win the Big Ten at plus 800. And then it's Penn State at plus 2,000. Obviously, that would shift pretty dramatically if Penn State were to win this weekend. Guys, thanks for watching Late Kick. Make sure to leave a comment. I love interacting with you. But most of all, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. That's how we keep all of this free.